Hey everyone, welcome. It is Friday afternoon. These is Friday afternoon cocktails. We're going to sit around and wait for a couple of minutes, see if anybody joins us, or joins me, I should say. There's really no us, is there? So it's been a hell of a week. Oh, it's been a hell of a week. There's been a lot going on. Been creating content all week. I feel like I've fallen into a huge hole here and just kind of coming up for air. It's been pretty amazing. Um, And I'm excited to show you guys what I've been making. I know next week I'll be doing a webinar on creating your own podcast. It is unbelievably exciting for me to do this. I can't wait. Um, you're going to have to just pay attention and see when it's going to come out. There's, I think at this point, 100 and some odd slides that I've put together, and this is a comprehensive course. Absolutely comprehensive course. So I couldn't be more excited about it. I hope you'll join me. If you have any interest in starting a podcast or some sort of audio show, you're going to want to join this. So, hey, if you're just joining me, feel free to jump in the chat. You might have to authenticate with StreamYard. If you do want to join me here and maybe get in on the fun, let me know in the chat and maybe I can send you an invite and you can join me here and we can talk a little bit. But thanks. This is just a Friday afternoon hangout. I really don't have an agenda. It's just me and a little bit of bourbon. And I think, or rye, I should say at this point, it's Friday. So why not wind down the week with a cocktail? We can talk about anything. Oh, look at everybody rolling in. So, like I said, if you're just joining me, thank you. Welcome. We're just kind of hanging out and talking. If you want to join the chat, please do jump on in there. We can interact. If you want to join me here on screen, send me a note and I'll send you an invite. Maybe folks can float in and out and just kind of have this be like a bar room and folks can hang out. But yeah, it's been a crazy week. I'm going to take a quick sip, get this whole thing going. Salute, cheers, skål, whatever it is that you celebrate with. God, that's good. Yeah, it's been a hell of a week doing a lot of content creation. What have you guys been up to? Join the chat. Might have to authenticate with Facebook or StreamYard or allow permissions and that sort of thing. But jump on in. If you want to join me, send me a DM in the chat and I'll bring you onto screen. But yeah, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I want to make sure that everybody out there is doing okay. It's been a little bit difficult at times for me this month. There's been a lot going on. Barroom free drink. You know, Audrey, if I could find a way to get you a drink really, really quickly, I would. You're probably going to be better at that than I am. Maybe I can send you something. Who knows? But here, this one's for you. Apparently we're gonna watch me get drunk tonight. So here we go. And then Charlene. Oh God, Charlene. Hey, how are you? Feel free. I will send you an invitation through here. I don't know if I can, but why don't you text me or something and I can send you the invite. I'm trying to figure out how to do that myself. I've never really done that. So I don't know. I'm learning as you are. Ed, my friend, how are you? I haven't seen you in forever. So for those joining, Ed is my friend overseas, and he used to listen to me DJ online all the time and hang out with us on air. God, man, it's great to see you show up. That's so fun to have you here. So it's evening your time's, God, probably getting close to 11 or 12 o'clock, right? So what are you still doing up? Regardless, I'm glad that you're here. This is going to get fun, I have a feeling. So let me know in the chat what you guys want to talk about. Ask me anything. Completely open book, especially at this point in the week. I am nothing but searching for a little bit of interaction. I've been stuck here in my office. I've rearranged my entire office to do some better recording, have a slightly more interesting background behind me. But right now I'm focusing about 190% on podcasting and doing a lot of streaming, podcasting, content creation. And for those of you that missed the beginning of this, I'm doing an incredible webinar next Thursday night, time to be determined, but stay tuned, on starting your own podcast. This is a comprehensive course. It's not just kind of like, hey, let's, turn on a microphone and go. It is talking about equipment, business, marketing, recording, editing, live interactions, setup, preparation, topics, guests, across the board, everything, monetization, distribution, anything that you can conceive of thinking about podcasts. This is what I'm going to teach you. Why am I going to teach you this? Because I only have about 25 years of experience doing this. While it might not appear it, I've actually been doing this for a really, really long time. Oh my God, Laura's here. How do you look exactly the same 15? Sorry, believe me, I don't look the same. Things are a little bit snowier up in here. But oh God, it's great to see you here. Say hi to JR for me. This is so fun having everybody join me. Okay. So yeah, doing this podcast course, it is phenomenal. I started falling into the content creation after I did something with the local Rotary last week, and did a little bit of speaking for them, teaching people what podcasts are, how I got started in it, and why I'm doing it so much, the successes that I've seen, how it incorporates into my business, all of that stuff. So the course itself is centered around that. I said, why don't I take all this experience and just turn it into a course? So that's what I did. So for the past, I don't know, 2 days, I've put together at least 100 slides on getting a podcast going and everything that you need to get started. This is not necessarily something where you're going to come out of it and have the Joe Rogan podcast, right? This is a way for you to get your feet wet, start thinking about it, how you want to differentiate yourself, and then everything that you'll need to get started from the beginner level, advanced level, pro level. I'll cover absolutely everything. So let me know what you're up to. Just jump on in that chat. Shoot me a note, text me if you want to join me. Let me know. I'm going to see if anybody has texted. Let's see. Oh, boy. Okay. Let me see what I can do. I've got to open up all these. It's so much easier to do this on the Artist Forge when I have like 75 people in the room and Nicole is helping me and Beck is helping me and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to find this link and I am going to get it out to Charlene, because I haven't talked to Charlene, God, in probably 10 years, 10 or 12 years, maybe. So I'm going to jump on over to Facebook and Messenger and do all this sort of stuff together. All right. Here we go. There you go. And sent. Charlene, why don't you join me up here and we can chat for a few minutes and maybe I can bring some other guests on. But I've just, like I said, I've been kind of in hiding. Generator has been on pause for a couple of weeks. I had a computer that died on me. I had a 2014 iMac, go figure, it died after 9 years. And I spent a couple of days just trying to recover from that. It was an excuse to have a new Mac Mini delivered to the house, which is great. So I got that M2 Pro Mac Mini, which has been dope. It's super fast. It's running this whole setup now. I wish I could turn you around and see, like I just turned around like you're standing there. I wish you could see this whole setup. So 49-inch monitor, cameras, lights, podcast decks, the Rodecaster over here, microphones. It's been pretty cool getting this all rearranged and set up so that it works better for me than just trying to kludge it all together every single time. So with that, what I'm going to do is bring to stage Charlene Tufts. Now, Charlene and I used to work at Cisco Systems together for a lot of years. We did HR, we did mergers and acquisitions, did all sorts of stuff. So without delay, I'm going to bring to the stage Charlene.
A similar jack of all trades, master of none.
Similar jack of all trades, is that what you said?
Yes.
How are you?
I am good. I'm crazy but good.
Well, crazy's crazy. Are you at work right now?
I just wrapped up with my last email of the day and saw you go on live and thought I'd love to chat with Matt. Haven't talked to you in forever.
What are you drinking? I know it's a
Mm,
seltzer of some sort.
Spindrift.
Spindrift, there it
Yes.
is.
Yes. I thought a little too early for me to start drinking.
Oh, might have lost her. Well, maybe she will come back. There are things that happen all the time like that. So I'm just going to drop her out for a second. So, yeah. So,
I'm
okay.
back. Yeah, I'm fine. I just bought a house, so they're telling me that I can walk in. I can go in and get the keys tonight.
Nice. Where are you now?
I am currently in Edmonds, Washington, and just bought like about 5 minutes east of here, a place in Mount Lake Terrace. So
Nice.
right above Seattle. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Back in the day, you were out of what, Boston, and I was in
Yep.
Southern California.
Yep. Yep. So I was living at the time. I was living down in Milton, just outside of Boston. And then I moved to Maine in 2010, right about the time I got laid off. So all of that was kind of going on at the same time, was getting laid off, moving, getting divorced, switching jobs, finding life, growing a
Yeah,
beard, like all the things. It all kind of happened at the same time. So
yeah.
yeah,
We have a
it's
tendency to do those things,
yeah,
right?
I've been living here now 13 years.
Okay.
And I was talking to a buddy this morning about it. And, there used to be a time in this tiny little town where people could know you were from away. And recently I was told that I was a local, which is cool, but I'm never going to be. So there's difference, right? There's from away, which is kind of like anyone you don't like, mass holes, people that come up, all that sort of stuff. You got the from away people, which I
Yep.
used to be. Then there are the locals, which is kind of the folks that live here, but they can be from anywhere, but they've been here long enough to be considered local. And then there's the from here folks. And those are the old school guard. Those are the people that are like Bethel, Maine, born and bred, raised, never left the town, that sort of thing. And that's an elite class unto themselves. So, yeah, I was called a local today, and it just warmed my little dark heart. I was just like, finally, 13 years, I got accepted as a local. That's all it takes. So you want to move up here, just give yourself a couple of decades and you'll fit right in.
Yeah, yeah. Good. They have to see you repetitively.
Right. Out of, you know, my high school was bigger than this town.
That's crazy.
It's
I mean,
crazy to think.
I grew up rural, and I grew up similar to what you're saying. Like, we weren't really from there
Yeah.
because the last name wasn't the same last names that everybody else had. It was a very
Yep.
small town. Yeah, similarly. And but that is ultimately still where I grew up, even though I was never from there.
Yeah. It's I'm checking things. People are pinging me all over the place. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
an interesting thing, culturally. Um, Especially here in a tourist town, right? I don't know. Is your town much of a tourist town, or is it just kind of
Oh, because it's a northern suburb of Seattle.
yeah,
Not as much as obviously Seattle, but it's a water town. So you have the ferries and the ferry
yeah,
experience here. So we get a lot of intermittent traffic, particularly when the weather's as beautiful as it is today, because people are going to the other side of it and over to the peninsula. So we get a
yeah,
lot of through traffic, but it's
yeah.
more
We've
of a
got
suburb.
we've got an interesting moment right now. We're in mud season, so in between the ski resorts shutting down,
Mhm.
and then you have all the mountain runoff. It just kind of sucks here for about 6 weeks, but then it starts to warm up. Snow melts, bugs come out, all that sort of thing. And so it's been like 70 degrees the past couple of days. People are outside. So I haven't seen people since November,
Yeah.
and bumping into everybody's happy. It's just such a great time of year, knowing that we have about another 6 weeks before winter starts again. So it's about what we're getting.
Well, here we have the dark, right? So I mean, it starts at about late September, early October, and then it's gray, if not pretty much dark
Mhm.
for months on end.
Yeah, it's
And
a
then
whole different
now,
world out there.
yeah, and now when we have days like this where it's not raining, where the sun is out, the culture here is to be outside
Yeah.
and to get as much vitamin D as possible. But like we also are a bit vampire-ish, and that we're so used to the dark that it's also, sunglasses around.
Oh,
There's like,
I get it totally. I'm sitting here inside on a Friday afternoon. It's gorgeous out. I should be sitting on my deck with the
mm,
dog drinking. Nope. Let's plug in. It's funny. Audrey asks, "What town were you in when high school?" Where high school is actually bigger than your town. So I grew up in Medford, Massachusetts. My senior class was 720 some odd kids. So the whole school was around 2,500, 2,600. And the town that I live in now is under 1,000. We're under 800, I think, right around the 800 mark. And then where my studio is in Bethel, year round, it's about 2,000 people.
wow.
But given any ski weekend, winter weekend, you're really looking at having anywhere between 5 and 10,000 people in town. So it really blows up and becomes a stressful situation. As much as we depend on all that money, it just becomes like, I don't want to go food shopping. I don't want to do anything. There's too many people. So yeah.
So you were talking when you started
Yeah.
the feed about kind of it being Mental Health Awareness Month and
Uh-huh.
feeling a little. It sounds like you feel like a little bit isolated. Kind of similar. I mean, I work 100% remote. I've been through a pretty, traumatic experience over the last couple of months with my current employer, and
Mm.
just have been pretty much within these walls, just trying to like get by every single day. And
Yeah.
I hear you. It's good to reach out, and I'm glad you did it. So
Yeah, no, it gets challenging, right? And so the interesting thing as a creative, as an artist, right? We're generally insular, right? We like to isolate. Add in sprinkle of neurodivergency, and the social skills are out the window. So it's been I've noticed over the past probably year or so, it wasn't even so much this month. I mean, this month was a little bit difficult, but over the past year or so, there's been this relative decline in my friends' mental states. And I don't mean that in a dangerous way, but I'm just noticing there's more anxious days, there's more sad days, there's more overwhelmed days, things like that. And with no discernible difference in life or responsibilities, but there just seems to be a tenor, whether that's nationwide or whether it's just it is what it is. Um, we're a little bit burnt out as a culture. So I think
agree.
it's important to just kind of recognize, right? We were all about it during COVID. It's okay to not be okay, right? And it was this kind of collective feeling like things are a little bit shitty. Let's figure out how to get through this together. And we did that. And now we're kind of at this place where we're on our own again.
Yeah.
And people are back to work. And some people are back to work. A lot of people are not. And it's become this thing where you lapse back into that isolation, that feeling of loneliness, that not so much a desperation, but just this feeling of, all right, I'm on my own again.
Not the
And
support system
yeah,
isn't
you kind of
actively.
lose the support system, right? I've even noticed with my texting my friends, right? It's not the constant all day, every day. It becomes like, oh, yeah, I see the text, I'll get back to it. And they're on the other end going, this MFer isn't going to text me back, right? We just continue to separate and separate and separate. So I just wanted to, kind of call attention to it that if you are struggling in any way, shape, or form, find therapy. There's plenty out there. Phone a friend, talk to somebody. Just take your mind away from the problems or take the problems to someone that can help. And I think enough people have kind of removed the stigma from therapy and from being able to talk about these things. But I notice for men specifically that it becomes a little bit difficult for us to talk about our problems, whether it's self-value or body image or finance issues, right? I found the male community, alpha, all the feelings,
Macho stuff.
bunch of macho dicks we are, that we're not talking about it as much as we should. Yet when I go one-on-one with a bunch of my very close friends, yeah, we all kind of have the same issues. So
Yeah.
I don't know if because of what you do you notice a lot more of this happening?
In
Or do
terms
you
of the
notice in
isolation,
Seattle or
well, I mean, I think right now people are sitting between two worlds, and that is it's stressful in itself. You have spent a couple of years predominantly working from home, and then now you have a significant number of companies in the metro area needing and requiring, if not being asked from the city, to bring people back into the office.
yeah,
And so that has you having one foot in one canoe and another foot in another canoe, and they're not necessarily both balanced well. And so people do get isolated because you feel a little bit more frazzled. You have to do the heads down work when you're sitting at home, typing away, with our hunched over kind of worlds, and then get into an office, and there's this desire to reconnect with people. But to your point about neurodivergence and everything else, like not everybody gets recharged by that activity, especially after such an extended form of isolation. Or I feel it is less draining to have screen to screen connections than it is in person. Because body language, appearance, getting yourself ready, getting yourself to wherever you want to be, it just takes more energy for a lot of folks. And when you're trying to connect and do work in both of those environments at the same time over the span of a week, it just doesn't fill people's wells
yeah.
as much as it you would hope it would. I we had so I work at Silicon Valley Bank,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
obviously,
I've heard of them recently.
yeah, yeah. And we have been through a pretty like traumatic amount of stuff
I bet.
over the last few months. And as we were acquired by First Citizens, we all had to come back together to do something as mandatory and as simple as I-9s. And there was this like almost excitement at first, like panic, because it's a lot to get done in a short period of time with a lot of people at a lot of different locations. But then when we got in, and we got to like bond over that trauma, it was great. But then now the back and forth is just exhausting for people of when do they need to be, where do they need to be, and then how are they providing value in their day to day during this transition. So what may have been an initial like good recharge, good reconnect for folks, now trying to maintain those physical relationships with peers, dialogues with peers, and not over stressing people out, because we're still kind of all processing what does it mean to
Yeah.
be acquired by another bank. There's just a lot to go through, and so I think for the company that I work for and probably others, the juggling and where does your personal life fit in all
Right.
of that, or on top of that. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but in my personal relationships, um, in what you said around support systems over COVID, because we were all going through this significant thing together,
Mhm.
people have started to like pocket out again.
Yeah.
And so that what was like maybe a pretty good extended group that was pretty close and all connecting with each other regularly, it's now like this pair goes off and do that, and this pair goes off and that. And you almost have to rebuild kind of your social skills and your social network of like what it was like to be in the real. We became very accustomed to group chats and sharing Wordle scores and doing whatever every single day. And that after a while, that starts to like disappear, and you don't have that same check-in that you maybe did during COVID.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot. God, there were so many things in there that you said. I could talk about this forever. So, I've noticed that there has been that shift, right? People are starting to get out and then kind of re-click up, right? And
Yep.
the groups are starting again. And that's great. But what I've noticed specifically in the photography industry of the creative world is that we all struggle with networking. And it seems like everybody took one giant step back with networking.
Mm,
And because networking meetings didn't happen because we couldn't breathe near each other, right?
right.
And so then people got used to Zoom and they joined that. And then that kind of fell off as people got outside. So it's been this weird, we created some cultural norms by separating, and now a lot of folks just don't want to go back to the way things were, right?
Yeah.
But everything that you were talking about with your company, and God knows I want to ask you all the questions, but I'm going to respect you and not do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't want you going to jail for anything. Um, but I remember, when we were at Cisco and I was heavily in the M&A world, and we would go in to, like, we were the first people through the door, right?
Yeah.
When we'd acquire a company, first people through the door, and all the questions were, what's going to happen? Where are we going? Right. And whether or not you were the weirdo in the office or the CEO, everybody kind of came together because they had the common either friend or foe that Cisco was,
Yes.
right? Are they going to be the bad acquirer that just lays everybody off? Are they going to be the middle of the road moderator and make, most people happy, try to do the general good? Or are they going to be great and just be like, here are the keys to the kingdom and all the money in the world? And I can give you 10 examples from each one of those that I saw. What I remember doing, and as my favorite part of the job, both on the IT side and the HR side, was just talking people through the process, right?
Mhm.
Because they weren't the first people to ever get acquired. And this is where your experience really comes in handy with what you're going through,
Yeah.
because you've been through it. You can navigate folks through what they're going to be feeling, what their relationships are going to be like, what their spouses or their kids or their partners are going to ask them, right? And it's a really tenuous time. Couple that with all the other shit I was talking about, all the cultural stuff,
Yeah.
and whoo, it's a doozy. I can't
Yeah.
imagine doing what I did as often as I did in this climate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's fascinating to me just to talk to someone that's going through an acquisition, merger, whatever it is, that you're going through. Again, to understand how that fits these days, especially.
I uh I I run a daily connect with the HR business partners and HR directors right now.
Yeah.
And there's usually maybe two topics that I bring in every single day to give an update of what I know. And sometimes I don't really know much, but
Yeah.
the value is in having that connection and that conversation. And if I hadn't been through as many years of remote work as I have, I don't think that that would be as easy. But it does allow for people across the country all going through this in isolations in their own particular locations
Yeah.
to at least connect with their peers and see they all have the same questions. They're all dealing with the same anxieties, and we all have open questions that we need to enlist a sense of patience on. And to your point of what we've done in the past in under a Cisco tenure, we did that over and over again. So there are certain things that you can anticipate of what's next in the timeline, but patience is always a struggle. Even I myself, as an employee that has been part of this entire thing, struggles with patience. I want to know what's happening next. I want to know the next timeline. I want to know the next milestone. And and that's and that's difficult to just kind of settle in. Whatever the timeline's going to be is what the timeline's going to be. I made this choice because SVB failed March 10th, and I had already been searching for a home for months at that point. And obviously, with the failure of a bank, it was huge. It was massive. Didn't even know where my next paycheck was coming from. I think in
Right.
the span of 20 days, I had four separate employers. And so I paused my search.
Yeah.
And then I got to the other side of that first 20, 30 days. And I was like, you know what? I'm ready for this. I, as a human being, despite any of these circumstances, have done the work, am ready both financially and personally to be able to make this very large, shift in my life. And I went forward and did it. And I I it's a beautiful thing to be able to have that kind of, um it's going to work out however it works out, and
Yeah.
it's going to be fine. I don't know where the heck that came from. I'm going to be thankful that it's here, and relish in that fact. But I think what was important for me is that the career wise, the work environment can be completely chaotic. But of what I can control and what I've done the hard work from both a financial and personal perspective,
Right.
I need to move forward with life. And this was my way to kind of like seize the, life by the horns and be able to do that. And I try to convey that in as many of the conversations that I have as I connect with other people going through it. Don't pause your life, because I'm coming from a place of experience. We saw it time and time
Sure.
again. You can't predict what the future is going to bring in an acquisition, but if you have things that you've got going on personally, you invest in those and
Wholly
experience.
and completely. I used to joke, I've been working at home since 1999. So 24 years. Like when COVID came along, I was like, I've been preparing my whole life for this. Like I've been working alone at home. I've got this nailed, right? But, you know, talking about your acquisition, having been on both sides, having personally been acquired and then going through the acquisition process, having that internal sense of faith that life is going to work out,
Yep.
right? That this isn't the end of everything. Yes, my world is shifting, but it's doesn't mean that things can't be better. And a lot of it is perception, your own self-value, right?
Mhm.
I know when I was laid off, which equates to someone being redundant in a merger and acquisition. When I was laid off, I had such low self-confidence. I had absolutely no idea what was going to happen next. Despondent, despair, throw divorce on top of that, and I was suicidal. Like there are all these things that you can really focus on the worst possible scenarios, right? Your brain will come up with anything.
Right.
But when you can step back a little bit and just breathe and just understand that this isn't the first time this has ever happened to somebody, right? Like country songs, like your breakup isn't the first breakup that ever happened, right? They write
Right.
songs about all this stuff. And so when people can understand that this doesn't mean it's the end of the road, it might mean it could be a significant shift for you. For some people, it would just be kind of like, okay, whatever. But for me, I know it was a complete life upheaval.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I would never be the man I am now if I had not been laid off at the time that I was. And while it really destroyed me at the beginning, I'm so grateful it happened. I never would have become a photographer. I never would have done the things that I've done and traveled the world like I did. And I think now when those disruptive events happen to me, whatever they are, there is this focus of, all right, it's really not that big of a deal. Like no matter what I think is, it's really not that big of a deal. I'll wake
And
up tomorrow, everything will be fine.
I remember having conversations with you back then, right? And I, because we worked pretty closely together around the time that you got laid off, and I was very concerned about you going off in the middle of the woods, living in a cabin by yourself.
13 years, baby, I made it.
But to your point, like you got through that, and I honestly, like just outsider looking in, I don't know if you see this, but you also were able to be probably bold because you knew where that could lead and that you'd still be okay.
Yeah.
So, what you've built in the span of this last 15 plus years and been able to do with, to your point, travel, companies, jobs, media, photography, whatever it may be, you've known that like your fallback is survivable.
Right.
and
Every
and
time.
so there's something innately human and beautiful about that, in that we know that if we've pulled ourselves up from our bootstraps before, that we've got the skills to do it again if necessary. And therefore it becomes less scary because you've had that experience. And and I've been laid off previously, so like I do know intimately that if I'm found to be redundant, that I will be okay, that things
Right.
will be okay. And that's where I settled in with. And then if I know it's going to be okay, then move forward with your life. Don't let things get put on pause because of futures you can't predict,
I
right?
lost so much. I lost so much time, so many opportunities. Looking back again, right? I lost so many opportunities because I was just dwelling on the junk. And it wasn't until probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago when I really started doing the inner work, right? I had
Mm-hmm.
kind of gotten myself out of some holes, but as my first business started and kind of deadened out, really didn't go where I wanted it to go. And then starting Stone Tree, it's been the single most terrifying, stressful, depressing, soul crushing thing I've ever done, starting businesses by myself. But it is also the single greatest thing that's ever happened to me, because what it has taught me in resilience, in faith, in just the way that energy works in the universe and how I relate to others. And the fact that despite all of it, I got here. I've been able to put a roof over my head every
Mm-hmm.
single day.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot to be grateful for in that, despite the fact that some weeks I'm like, I'm going to lose some weight, might not be eating this week, but I know that next week everything will be fine. And it's taken me a really long time, damn near 50 years, to get to this point of just acceptance and understanding and contentment, really, is what it's become. It's hard to convey that to someone when they're going through the shit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's really hard because you're just kind of like, it gets better. Does it? Does it fucking really? Right. And for me, all I can do is keep reiterating the fact, give more examples. I failed here. I failed here. I failed here. And I'm still here standing.
Yeah.
Right. And so when it comes to this, as I talk to folks, the fears that come across in what they're talking about are rarely about the thing that is happening to them. It's more fear and anxiety about what's next. The great
Mm.
part is you can make the what's next anything you want,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of breathing, stepping back, and looking at the playing field a little bit differently.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also know that we get very attached to things.
Sure.
Those things could be titles, those things could be cars, they could be, art on walls or whatever. And and there is there's something very cathartic about understanding that at the end of the day, like, you don't need those things. And they're great. They can be enjoyed over time, but they're not never really ever really meant to be sustained.
Nope.
We don't take anything with us when we go, and that
Nope.
is
And we don't get out of it alive either.
no, none of us are getting out of here alive. But what what does carry on beyond us is our relationships
Yeah.
and our experiences, right? Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. I have a 19-year-old son.
He's 19 now.
Yes.
Oh my God. So
Yes, 19 and stumbling through life, and it's crazy and scary all in itself, being a parent to someone that is ultimately a young adult.
yeah.
But I want him to see that resilience is the most important quality to have. And and he's already survived so much himself. His father and I have bounced that child around the United States quite a few times. And yes, no one gets out of here alive, right?
Hey, Shanta.
um and but that, God, cultivating relationships as a
Yeah.
mom like that,
Yeah.
that will be my legacy.
Yeah. That's it, right? So it's why I base my whole business around I'm going to step back a second. So when I started Stone Tree, I really wanted to. I'm actually going to pause right there. For those of you joining us, this is Charlene Tuff. She's one of my dear friends from a career or 9 ago. We used to work together at Cisco Systems. We're talking HR, mental health, just feelings of anxiety around acquisitions or getting laid off. This is just the random conversation we fell into.
Yes.
Jump in the chat, talk about anything you want. Maybe we can shift subjects, but we're just hanging out. If you want to join me, DM me. I'll bring you into the chat. I think we can have up to 10 people here. So I don't know. Let's make it a party. All right. So that being said, when I first started Stone Tree, I really wanted to be the successful portrait photographer and have this big studio and make tons of money and do all these retail sales and just live a very comfortable lifestyle. And I realized like the business model that I was following absolutely 100% can provide that for you. I learned everything that I know how to do in this business, mainly from Sue Bryce, and I follow that business model today with my own modifications. What I mean by that is I didn't focus 100% on the money and the revenue generated in the company. I focused on the connections that I was making with my clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I noticed was as I did that, and that came across in my marketing, just conversations and trying to drum up business, that I was weeding out all the people that I didn't want to have as clients anyway. That even though they would pay me money, it was just kind of like, doesn't give me any satisfaction. As I started to focus more on these connections, I get into a photo shoot and you start talking about stuff and you share experiences, and it becomes less about the posing and the lighting and more about just connecting as humans. And as I did that, and as I started to do this year over year, I realized I don't have the hundreds of thousands of clients that I thought I'd have, but I got like 40 or 50 really good ones a year. You know what I mean? Like just really amazing people. And for me, that is everything, right? Having these connections, because quite honestly, like I don't expect I'll be a photographer the rest of my life. I don't expect that Stone Tree will live on for some amazing legacy, and people will talk about it in 100 years. It ain't going to happen. But whatever's next, everything that I'm doing now will contribute to the success of that. Right.
Because it's
So
relationship management. What you bring
there
or
it
the
is.
value that you bring is a photo or a product, but the real core of that is the relationship that you build out with your clients. That's
Yep.
that's beautiful, Matt.
And my friend Teresa says, "Hi, Charlene."
Hey.
Hey, Teresa. Yeah, it's been, kind of, we circle back to the beginning of this. Networking is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Networking is hard. It brings up every one of those fears and anxieties in us, all our own self-criticisms. What are they gonna think about me? How's my breath? Am I too fat? And am I too thin? How's my hair? I'm not,
Or how do I
employable enough.
transition a conversation to something that's productive for everybody? Like that to me is the secret sauce, right? Like it's not even just about like, are you connecting enough to feel vulnerable in that moment to either ask for something or build enough of a rapport so that down the line both of you can get something out of it. That part of networking is tough. I had a cold call today from a gentleman, and we ended up on a Teams session, and he stumbled with it. So did I. We got through it. It was awkward. But we came out of it with a productive of like, here's an opportunity for both of us to do a little bit of work together. I mean, it's
Right.
nothing big. It's nothing that's gonna like make either one of us any type of money. It's nothing professional. It's just more of like a, hey, let's collaborate on something, because that is where like those relationships start to build. And that's not that go get it, that really like boots on the ground networking opportunities take a lot of energy and vulnerability.
I'll give you a great example. So in this little town, our chamber of commerce is horrendous. I cannot say enough bad things about our chamber of commerce.
Uh-oh.
No one that works here has ever owned a business. They don't promote businesses unless you pay their dues. They don't provide any resources, right? It's a very poorly run organization, right? There's a lot of younger business owners in town that need guidance and assistance, right? So when it comes to networking, one of the things that the chamber does is a business after hours networking event, typically once a month at one of the locations, right? The location, of course, has to pay for all the beer and the food and everything like that. And the chamber just kind of shows up and takes credit for it. But what it does is it brings a bunch of people into the room, and the goal is to network, right? And what I've noticed after years of going to these things is that a bunch of people come because old people like free drinks and food. So it's typically at a time where no one's in bed yet. It's about 5 o'clock. And folks show up and they fall into their small groups of friends from
They're not
town, right?
mixing.
Small
Yeah.
town. And they just kind of hang out there. Occasionally, someone will walk up to somebody new and talk to them a little bit, but very rarely does it happen. And so I went to this event with a buddy of mine who owns another business here in town. And we went and we stood there like Statler and Waldorf, the Muppets in the balcony, and we just commentated on this whole thing. Now, I absolutely was standoffish and could have networked more, but I was just kind of like in that energy of F this, right? So
Not serving you. So
wasn't serving me, right? But what I do is I observe everything. And I'm watching these interactions and I realize that in this town, because no one gets that support, no one has collaborations or cross promotions or anything like that, that there needs to be a new sort of networking. So why not me, right? So starting to do some things at the studio to bring other business owners together, since the conversations aren't happening anywhere else. Like, why not bring folks together and truly build partnerships in this town? Have a restaurant and a salon and a bed and breakfast do some sort of getaway weekend, right? And you buy this
Bundle.
package. Now all three are cross promoting each other, right? It's that type of networking that really starts to penetrate. And I have not seen anything like that in a long time in this town. So when it comes to like what you were talking about with this guy and kind of working through this awkwardness, right? Everybody's always got the awkwardness, but there's got to be that we can both see the end result. We can both see what's on the other side of this, even though it might be a little funky right now. In this town, what I've noticed is no one has that foresight to say, hey, doing this together might be a great opportunity. We're not competitors. We could actually do some really cool things. And it takes a lot of kind of a special individual to kind of push people towards that, right? And it can be anyone.
To build resiliency in a community, you should all be equally invested in that, right? One business succeeds and shares what's working, what's not with another business, regardless of take the competitiveness out of it.
Right.
That is good for the town. That is, as a person who grew up in a small town that was slowly dying and is continuing to like have a slow demise many years later, being isolated as a business owner is not going to serve the resilience of the actual community itself surviving in a real sustainable way.
Right. I mean, we're rural, right? We're isolated from the rest of the country, right?
Yeah.
But separate that and divide that even further in the town of 2,000 people, right? Where you probably have, and I'm going to throw a random number because I didn't do my research. Let's say 50 businesses, 50 core businesses in the town. Restaurants, photographers, auto body garages, all that sort of stuff, right? Let's say you have 50 to 100 businesses. Great. I rarely, if ever, see any collaboration between them, partnership, cross promotion, doing things with each other, setting up events on their own to try to bring folks in. So there's a lack of education. There's a lack of collaboration, right? People just don't know what to do and where to go to get it. So, you know, that isolation becomes more and more and more distant to the point that you just kind of give up. And I almost reached that point recently where I was just like, you know what? Fuck this place, right? But then I was like, all right, slow your roll. Like you've built your home here, you've built your business here. How can you address it and make some of these things come to fruition? So I don't know. I've kind of got that. My friend Nicole says, I've got that. How hard can it be, Gene? And that's kind of what's taken over. I'm like, how hard can it be? If the Chamber of Commerce in my town refuses to do anything good for the businesses, then why not me?
Yeah.
How hard can it be? Right? I can
Yeah.
either criticize them day and night, or I can do something about it. So just going to do something about it. So a little bit of guerrilla chamber, if you will,
Well, or just Chamber of Commerce is kind of a legacy way of doing things, right? I mean, our world, regardless if you're rural or in the city, we are now more global than we ever have been, and so we have to look at things differently. And I think your paradigm shift that you had there is really impressive. And don't give genetics the credit for it. Give your own circumstances of life lessons of you figuring out how to do things differently to get to your end goal in mind, right? I mean, I grew up. My family had a restaurant in a small ski town, so very similar to what you're describing there in the Bothell area. And my grandfather and uncle would have to it was a pizza place, and so they'd have to warm up the stone ovens early in the morning.
Yeah.
And I don't know when or how the practice came about, but the city council, chief of police, and a bunch of the city and business leaders would go every morning to have coffee with my grandfather while he was warming up the ovens. The restaurant wasn't open. It was totally an opportunity for them to just chat. And I think that helped sustain that community and that leadership. And once that was gone, that had a big impact across multiple businesses, as well as kind of city cohesion. And you're right, like no legacy is forever, but if you've got an opportunity to bring people together, guerrilla warfare notwithstanding, but like do it. Like there's until someone tells you no, you can't. Why wouldn't you try?
There's
great.
there's like logging is up here. Like the lumber industry is huge up here, right? That's our main export. Well, weed is quickly encroaching on that, but so there's a bunch of like old school logging landowners up here that have just been here for generations and generations, and they own all the forestry and they farm and they make a lot of money, and they're kind of like this Bethel Illuminati, right? So we've got our select board of the people that we vote in, and they're kind of like
You're
in
not really
name
in charge.
What you've got is a bunch of guys with very similar last names, and they've been here on this soil for generations, and they kind of puppet master all the stuff. And it's just a really interesting thing in a small town, right? You've got the power structure, and then you've got the real power structure, right? So it's not unlike large political organizations, but here it's really interesting because you know all the players, right? That all being said, we're at the tail end of the Illuminati lifespan because these guys are just old.
Yeah.
And so all of the newer progressive business owners that are coming into town are starting to form that new group, right? The folks outside of the select board and the Chamber of Commerce, the people that can really, through their own efforts in their own businesses, shape the context and culture and success of a town, right? We've got these Facebook groups that are, kind of like the little local Facebook group. Anybody can join it. And it is the most negative, toxic cesspool of fucking humanity that you have ever read, just like every other group on Facebook. And the interesting thing is the only people that are that nasty are the folks that don't want the people from away. They don't want change. They don't want anything, right? There's always something to focus on negatively. So when I want to dose, it's like Fight Club. Like, all right, Friday night, I got to go get beat up a little bit. I'm going to go in Team Bethel and I'm going to just check out what's going on there. There was 150 comment thread about a bench. About
You know you're from a small town when.
right? So that sort of thing. And so when I think about, all right, I've been here for 10, 12 years, 13 years, and the town has remained relatively the same. And I've been saying the same thing to myself over and over and over for the better part of a decade. Things are going to get better and things are going to change. And it has taken me just about that 10 years to start to see that happen. Now, also in the meantime, we come back to what we were saying earlier. I come back to I've seen a lot of my friends go out of business too because they're just like, screw this place. I can work
Hard.
a lot less in a more populated area and make all the money in the world doing what I'm doing. It is a hard life, being as isolated and removed from services while trying to maintain a luxury business or a business of any sort in a very small population area. So even plow drivers, landscapers, right? They struggle because there just aren't enough people up here. So when people say, can you make a small town photography studio work? Can you make a small town anything work? Yeah, but you work your ass off to make it happen, right? And it's doubly hard when you don't have support or resources or the relationships or the networks.
Yep.
Right? Which is why it makes it so important to try to do that to the best of your ability where you are. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whether it's family stuff or whether it's business stuff, but those relationships and that connection is really what is going to define your success, the success of how you perceive everything around you, right? So the small town thing has merit, but it's also a little bit of a fallacy, because you can make anything happen if you want it to happen, if you make the effort to make it happen, right? And regardless of what's happened in the past, getting laid off, right? Going through trauma, right? If you can understand that this ain't going to be the worst day of your life,
There is
right?
another side of this, right? There
Another
is
side of
another
everything,
side.
right? So as much as I struggle with business here from season to season, I know right on the other side of that is going to be something great. It might not be photography. It might be education. It might be podcasting. I might love cutting lawns. I don't right now, but I might love that. I don't know what's going to come, but I know as long as I stay in this kind of place of focus and gratitude and expectation and faith that, yeah, things are going to work out. Why worry about it now? Just
Yeah.
kind of keep aligned with who you want to be and where you want to go.
Now, when you engage in these conversations about a bench, what well are you looking to fill there? Or is it just the rage monster needs to like take it out on someone?
I try I try desperately when I do engage, and it takes a lot, right? So I used to, growing up, I had a hair trigger temper. I've wrapped more golf clubs around trees. I've punched more walls, right? And then I realized at some point in like my mid 20s, I was like, this is just stupid, right? And I really backed off of that. And it takes a lot now to get me angry. I mean, you have to hurt my dog. You have to burn my house down. Like something has to happen where you make me angry. It takes a lot. But I go in there because every now and again, you want a little taste. Just want a little taste. What does that rage feel like, right? Got to let the animal out of the cage once in a while, right? And when I go into these groups, if I decide to comment, I usually start with a rant. Pump it all out.
Oh my, you really just like
Here's my trick. I do it in like the notes app, right? I bang this thing out. So I don't like mistakenly fucking hit return and all of a sudden it goes up half thought out, like all write it somewhere else. I read it. Do I still feel that? Do I still feel that fucking angry? Nah, not really.
Yeah,
how can I make this funny, educational, passive aggressive, condescending, right? Oh, I can do all that. Shit, I get Chat GPT that can help me with that, right? So I go in and I just try to basically logic them to death. Just and hit every side of the argument and just try to disassemble their logic of why they're doing what they're. Now, I may agree with them 100%, but I just do it to get my rocks off, right? It's terrible. It's such like, oh, as Shanta's saying, oh God, yes, those groups are my guilty pleasure. Oh my God. And then I cycle through. Yeah, I sometimes just got to go to Fight Club. That's it. Maybe that's the old primate in me, right? That's the whole Stanley Kubrick. I'm a chimp with a bone
So
beating another chimp.
your version of like a smash room, your version of like let's
All
go
it
break
is.
something is to just enter a community Facebook.
Get in there and tear it up. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. Like, I observe way more than I participate. But every now and again, you're just kind of like, you know what? Let's get these gloves and these earrings off. Let's do some work. And then I feel better. And the funny thing is, I always, always, always maintain the notion that this could come back to haunt me on my business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
that's a good little governor.
Regardless of what it is, I'm like, everything on the internet lives forever.
Yes.
Ask me how I know. So there are some things I can't erase. Is what it is. I don't want anything to come back to my business that he said this thing, right? But everything that I put out, I'm like, will I stand by this in 5 years? Will I stand by this in 10 years? And if it kind of passes that grunt test, send, baby, send, right? But if I look at it and be like, that could be misinterpreted as misogynistic or racist or just inconsiderate in any way, shape, or form. Let's look at it again. Rephrase that, right? Is this going to come back to get me? And I don't mean that to be saying that I'm false in what I'm saying. I just know words mean things.
It's awareness, not falsity. Like it's important to be self-aware.
And Melissa echoes this. It's so great. Then I elbow my husband and want him to be so proud of how clever I am. Oh my God. I laughing my ass off at this because I immediately screenshot it and send it to like 3 people that I know are going to be like, oh my God, I hate that lady or that guy's a douchebag or whatever it is. It's so funny. But all I can say is like, I've had a, knocking on wood, good track record of not getting myself into some cancel culture, episode of the day. That hasn't been me yet. It's going to happen. I know this. But what's on the other side is going to be good, right? So
I similarly to your notes on the phone thing, when the bank failed, I put something together, but it never published it because I just don't want to be. I definitely don't want the press reaching out. I don't want to be a party to some type of back and forth about a very publicized. It was third largest.
It was 1 or 2 articles.
Yeah, third largest bank failure in United States history. But what it did for me, and I've kept it, and I might brush it off one day in the future. I needed to get that feeling out in some type of creative outlet, and the tone or the theme is core of who I am. It was like there are human beings that have worked for this company that are just as effective as the shareholders. They are shareholders themselves, and as the customers, and we're just as blindsided by everything that happened.
Yeah.
And so that just the exercise of writing that and getting that was cathartic, right? Like it does give you this opportunity, Rage Monster or whatever, just the ability to get the feelings out in a way that releases you from stress or distress.
Well, what it is that what it is in that moment that you're looking for is empowerment, right? Because you have been disempowered.
Yeah.
What was yours was taken away, and you're feeling powerless. You feel betrayed. You feel shame, right?
Yep.
So, what is it that you have to do to understand that? And when you start to just understand that you're just kind of feeling these things, but there's an opposite feeling to that, right? Being able to honor yourself, being able to trust in yourself, understanding that gives you some of that power back, right? People are looking to blame someone for the bad thing that happened to them, especially like in an acquisition or a bank failure or something to that effect, right?
Right.
Suddenly your world is turned upside down. You are vilified by everyone, no matter what it is you're associated with that thing that happened. Was it your fault?
Right.
Right. So people feel this shame and disempowerment, but when they can just turn that around a little bit, and I'm not saying just be happy. What I'm saying is like if you can understand that the feelings that you're feeling are one, natural, two, okay, and three are going to pass, then you can start thinking a little bit more rationally about, okay, what are the next steps? What do I need to do? How do
Yeah.
I need to deal with this situation? Let's think clearly rather than reacting, right? And I think once people start to realize that in whatever situation happens, and speaking specifically to getting laid off or acquisitions where the future is certainly unknown, that again, you're not the first person to go through it, and that the best course of action a lot of times is just sit back and assess before you start to react.
It's the processing, right? And everyone processes their emotions, their sense of control, their frustrations in different ways. And for me, I've always been a person who journals in stressful times. But this is like laser focused to your point of like, what can I control? And there's
Yeah.
the exercise itself of getting that down in words. Um, Provided something pretty valuable for me to just relinquish myself of that maybe sense of, to your point, lack of control, or just at the mercy of these very much larger and surprising circumstances. And get to the emotion, to be able to articulate it better then, because you've processed it internally yourself, so that I can go in front of a group every single morning and be like pragmatic. Here's
Right.
what we're going through. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. And it's okay, because there will be a different side to this.
How have you found understanding that it's a large organization? How have you found the trust factor in the culture? Meaning trusting what you're saying, right? So a lot of times from having worked in HR, the corporate message is this, the
Hmm.
HR translation to people that don't know how to speak word salad is actually this. And in that HR position, the leadership position of any sort, people see through bullshit immediately, right?
Yeah.
So it seems to be, from just what I gather in the tone of the things that you've said, that there's been this good connection between leadership and the staff, and giving them honest and open information about what's going on so that they don't feel disempowered and left out in the wind. Is that about right? It sounds like you're giving these
It
constant
is.
updates.
It is, but it isn't.
Okay.
So the SVB culture is dramatically different than our acquired culture. And given where you and
Oh,
I came
interesting.
from and where we started, we know that that's common, right?
Mhm.
Two
Mm,
organizations coming out of nowhere, like
mm.
they're going to have two different ways of
Oh,
looking at
totally.
it. And within SVB is obviously where I'm more comfortable navigating, and I'm more intimately aware of the culture and values that
Right.
were related to SVB as a legacy organization, and that the first value of SVB is starting with empathy, and that is embodied in the organization, and then the next one is leading with integrity, so that the core of that being empathetic and also coming at things from that pragmatic and honest and vulnerable space are core in how we work. Now, for citizens, it's just a different culture. They have some very similar values, but they're interpreted differently. The way that they function is separate and different. So I see the leaders at SVB stepping up to kind of bridge the gap between the two as the two organizations start to learn each other. And that's how we've survived to what we have survived. Now we've lost a lot of people.
Sure.
I mean, this has been a crazy circumstance.
Right.
But we've also lost less than I thought we would have.
Really?
I mean, if you would have asked me what this organization was going to look like today, here in May, almost June, when we were sitting at the end of March, and I thought we would be decimated with like a red wave of
Yeah.
just attrition, and both clients and employees have stayed far more than I thought that we would, and
That's a good thing.
I think for the culture on the FCB, for our acquirer side, it's a lot of wait and see.
Yep.
But SVB leadership themselves are trying to, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, here's what we can talk about, what we can't. And some of those messages are hard to hear. We have lawyers involved in this entire situation, and there have been, definitely some long tails and some answers.
Yeah.
Far more than you would want in even a normal acquisition, and it'll continue to be that way. But sometimes the honest answer is we don't have an answer, and we're not going to have one for you probably for quite some time. And even while that might be what people they definitely don't want to hear, they can usually respect because of the relationships we have as a legacy SVB culture. I think the relationship between HR and the business, it was unique, and it was one of the reasons I joined the bank.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt very well. First of all, it's Silicon Valley Bank, so it is peppered and populated with a lot of former Cisco folks, and so it has some of that core component of the technology leadership that I knew there, and it was a very unique and different bank as a result of it.
Well, you've always navigated. You've always had a good compass towards things that align with your values. And I've always known you in that way. So it doesn't surprise me that you say the culture was like that. But, without, again, because I'm drinking, so I'm going to ask questions, and I'm not gonna. So I'm going to shift a little bit.
We will have that private conversation over cocktails some other time.
100%. I'm not going to jail for anybody. So thinking back to the acquisition days, that was one of the hardest things that I remember having to manage when I would do the HR component, was working with the CEO or the leadership of this company, who is, regardless of their leadership experience, this is relatively new to them, new territory, and for the most part, right? And they're saying, what do I say? How do I do this? And I would just always be open, honest, and be like, listen, here's the facts. We don't know, or this is what's going to happen. We haven't made decisions, but here's everything. Here's how your employees are going to react. Do you have any problem employees? Who are your best evangelists, right? Who's looking at things a good way that people trust? And when you can not manipulate to win them over, but just understand that, listen, John over here, you guys all love John. If you don't trust me, trust John, right? And John is going to give you the straight dope when I walk out of the room, right? Mm-hmm. And I would always make sure that I would arm them with whatever the pertinent information, the latest that we had. And I'd say, you can either tell them all this, and this is what's going to happen, or you can message it this way, and things will be a little bit less. I am not here for you to say one thing or another. I was like, I trust you and your team. I'm going out for dinner, right? Because you have to let that leadership team work with their group, because there's that whatever trust there is between that.
Needs of the relationship, right? Yeah.
And so, but I found those conversations really hard, but it was those points in the process where leadership was made. And whether Cisco decided to keep their leadership team or not. Because if they didn't get on board, quite frankly, All right, we've got your
They
intellectual
weren't going to
property
be
and your
replaced.
technology.
Yeah.
Peace. But if we saw that you were kind of on board or able to steward your team towards success, they got everything in the world. They got the red carpet, right?
Because
So
there's change agents and then there's change resistance.
there it is. See, you've been in the world. I've been out of the world for a while. I don't have the cool catchphrases anymore. I'm just kind of like
No,
the people
but
that are
you're
good
right.
and
I
the
mean,
people that are bad.
the nimble leaders that have the relationships with their people and can and have that again. I'll go back to that core skill of resilience, and it can be a learned skill, not usually in the span of an acquisition or a single situation. Usually over a lot of trauma and a lot of time,
Yeah.
but but those leaders that either have the relationships to fall back on, that they're that trusted advisor within their organization, and they can shift and change and help their people change, that's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not going to matter whether or not they even are that change agent or not, but it's definitely going to help them if they are. And I think, like, I look at it from a perspective of leading by example. I've been asked a couple times to trim this regular connect, just because we don't have a lot of content to talk about. And I've said, nope, I'm not going to cancel it until we absolutely need to, because people are looking for this. They're needing that leadership. They're needing that pragmatic voice every single day. And they're needing that connection with either understanding of what we know and what we don't know. And until someone else can supply that, because the integration is going to take some time, right? Until someone else can supply that, this is the only forum they've got. This is the only lifeline that some people are actually looking to daily. I think that as we did acquisitions over the years, and I think through some, like, there was a couple of really stellar, like, VPs of engineering that were able to make that pivot and make that change, and they ended up being superstars in the industry.
Yeah.
I learned from them at every turn, right? Of just their ability to send a very clear and important message. And I actually saw this at SVB, as a bystander. But we had our internal leader of internal communications outwardly say, we are going to communicate information to you when we have it, when we can communicate it, but we're not going to get everything right. And setting
That phrase right
expectation.
there puts the superhero cape on him.
Yep.
I can trust this guy.
Yep.
That was the right thing to say.
Yep.
Right? Because inevitably there's going to be a screw up in some chain of communication, right?
Yep.
Inevitably, someone's going to hear something different. It's all a game of operator, right? When you're going through one of these big changes. And wow, what a great turn of phrase he used. That's great.
And I mean, what that comes down to, common theme of this conversation, is that failures happen.
Yeah.
Right. And regardless if it's a, very, very large bank, or a small business, or a marketing campaign, or a transition and acquisition or not, there is another side to it. And we're all going to be the same people that we are. Yeah. We're all going to have the same loved ones at the end of the day. And those things are less important about what is the long span of our very short lives, right?
I saw this meme, because that's kind of the world that I live in. So I saw the meme the other day, and thanks, COVID, where it said it showed like a farm of office cubes and just people sitting at it, right? And it said some people are going to do this 50 weeks a year for the next 40 years and consider that a life well lived, right? And I sat there and I said, all right, let's think about this for a second. Because at first I was just like, oh, shit. But then I was just kind of like, hold on. There's a lot of people that do a lot of good things in corporate jobs, right? There's a lot of good people that have their heart in the right place. And that's what they want to do. They can affect change on large scale that way. But it also had the double edge of, if you're there and you think that's your only option, you're wrong. It's it.
Right.
You don't have to be that person. So you can change like that, whether that is in your job, whether that is with your relationship or your weight or anything. You can change immediately. You just have to believe that you can. And that belief comes with being able to rationally put aside what you know are fears and blocks and understanding of yourself, being like, all right, this sucks right now, but I know I can change this. I know I can get along. You don't have to feel trapped in anything. So it just got me thinking, like, I got the intent that it was kind of like a little bit of a dig on corporate culture, but at the same time, it a little bit deeper. I was just like, there were a lot of people in that picture that looked very unhappy. And it got me more thinking about the unhappy people than about the corporate thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that's the way my
Yeah.
brain works.
Happiness is not. I one of my catchphrases, one of my personal mottos is I am a student of happiness.
Sure.
Because it takes study and it takes effort, right? It takes lessons and learns. But I mean, there could be someone that's miserable at the job, but what fills their well is the volunteering or family or things that they do outside of that cube every single day. And I think it's easy and it's fun to knock corporate America because let's face it, it's pretty wild and frustrating on a regular basis.
Sure.
But it also provides a lot for people that want to be more than just that desk. Because I mean, I have worked with coworkers at Amazon that were published authors of sci-fi books, but they needed the corporate job to be able to go and do the publishing, their dream job of actually, building out a fictional set of characters that really meant a lot to them. And I, for years here in the Seattle area, as my child was getting older and I was finding that I had more time, even while I was working at Amazon, which is kind of insane to say because it's a pretty high octane environment. I volunteered for the USO for 5 years as their Sunday morning supervisor. And that I got more fulfillment out of that than I did probably my last 2 years at Amazon. So, there's other sources of happiness
I remember when you took that job at Amazon and you were like, this shit is crazy. Like this is
it
bananas.
Really is. Every day is day one. Yes.
I was like, you were like one of my first friends to like escape the Cisco tractor beam, and I was just like, what's it like over there? You're like, it's crazy every single day.
It was 4.5 years of my life that had its own insanity on a fairly regular clip. But what I got out of that time was amazing.
Yeah, I bet.
And both at a personal level of skills of what I can get through and what I can manage through as a leader, and then also obviously as a professional expel. I mean, to say that I was able to accomplish some of the things that I was able to accomplish during my time is a great sense of pride for me. Sure. And I was never a zealot of the leadership principles, as Amazon quite often makes you to be, but I did learn some fundamental importance of some of those leadership skills that I carry on. I have a bias for action. I want to get shit done, and that will be one that I will constantly fall back on. And but I also understand that, like, being frugal is not necessarily always the right policy, because you do that whole penny wise pound foolish thing, and so you got to take out of those experiences what you can. But it was definitely a time in my career where I knew to the max of what I could handle and juggle. Would I want to go back to that? Probably not.
It's important to recognize when, like, this place ain't for me. But I'm just gonna say, just kind of reiterate to the people in the chat, because I'm sitting here. I've moved on to the champagne of beers. Another highlight.
I saw that there was a beer that got kicked.
Yeah, no, I was pre-thinking how I was going to do this podcast, and so I got my rye, and then I said, I'm going to go through this in at least an hour, so might as well bring a beer up with me. So anyway, if you're in the chat, and you want to join in the conversation, this is Charlene. Charlene is one of my dearest friends from a really long time ago. We both worked at Cisco together, especially in the HR and mergers and acquisitions world. So we're just kind of chatting HR shit and dealing with change and all of that. So if you want to join in, just hell, it's free skate, it's open skate. Just join in. We just like to talk. We haven't caught up in, it must be at least 6 or 7 years anyway since we've
Yeah,
like
because
really chatted, right?
I've been here 8 now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So definitely, it's been more
Yes.
than 8 years. Wow. Holy shit. So, but what I was going to say was, you know, I work with, well, I am one, and most of my friends are single owner operator of businesses, right? We're the core backbone of the entire economy, right? These small businesses, the single owners, and a lot of especially if you started not from a corporate culture. Sometimes I think my background is an amazing blessing in just understanding how corporations work and things to think through and professionalism. But it's also a huge draw on me because I'm always trying to hold myself to a standard of executive versus you press a fucking button and take pictures, man. Like you're not solving world peace here, right?
Yeah, but
So
neither are most of us.
yeah, no, right? No one is. With this PowerPoint, I shall solve the Middle East. Right? Doesn't happen. But
No.
but I know a lot of folks that start their business for the first time and start to grow don't really understand the nature of change, right? And they're going through it as a single business owner. They may have one employee or maybe some subcontractors or whatever it might be, but they haven't really dealt with significant change outside of their own, right? So if they start to grow too fast, they start to have a strange employee that acts weird, right? And they're in a situation that they don't know how to handle. And there's just change in themselves of how they interact with a business. If they don't know how to handle that, what are some of the things from your experience? And I don't care if it's metaphysical, if it's actual corporate instruction. What are some things that people can think about when they're like, all right, I'm a single business owner, I want to grow a little bit. What are the things I need to take into consideration dealing with like this growth and this change and potential junk that comes with all of it, right? All the mental stress that comes with it.
Yeah, I think that, well, first and foremost, I think all of us need to like take a step back and realize we've actually all collectively as a global society been through a massive amount of change since 2020, right?
Yeah,
And
you forget
so,
about that.
right? And as a small business owner, I can't even imagine. I've seen friends. Sorry, my dog has decided she's gonna be Cujo. Hold on. Hey,
So
come
thank
here.
you all for joining us. This is Charlene. She is an HR
Nope,
executive out
come
in
here.
California, one of my dearest friends from my days at Cisco Systems. And we're just kind of having open chat. If you're in the room, jump in the chat, talk to me. If you want an invite to the chat and join me and Charlene, just come on in. I'm just doing this until I run out of alcohol, which doesn't seem likely in the next few minutes. So you were saying.
Yeah, so I have a couple of friends that own small businesses, and during COVID, obviously none of us were equipped. You need to chill out, girlfriend.
That does not sound like a pug. Like, is it a mastiff? What do you got going on? Is it a T-Rex?
Say hi. Say hi.
Yeah, not a small dog.
No.
Oh, hey, buddy.
She is about 62 pounds and thinks she's a German Shepherd.
Now
Shut up.
all I want to do is just like, oh, it's scratch the puppy time. Whoa, let's play.
Yeah, she's coming up and she wants her little ears rubbed. Um, so so I had a friend, or I have a friend. His name is Brian. He has a amazing business here in North Seattle that unfortunately just closed. And but it's where Sky, this is my dog Sky, and I would hang out. It was called Voff Bark and Brew, and so it was a dog park bar. best business concept on the face of this earth. Very stressful one to run.
I bet.
And when COVID happened, he had to shut down because in early days of COVID, like even a dog park bar wasn't necessarily able to be open. And I think I checked in with him probably fall of 2020. Seattle has had an increase in crime, a significant increase in social unrest, and has been a harder place to just be a business owner, operator, business owner environment to begin with. And I weaseled my way in to his inner sanctum and just to check on him because I was worried about him.
Sure.
And he took the downtime and decided to remodel his entire building to better equipped for social distancing, being outside, allowing for heaters, an outside bar, the whole bit. Like he leaned fully into, I've got some cash, so I'm going to make this business better so when I can open back up.
Right.
But he's as many business owners like yourselves are, very stubborn, and I can do this all myself, and this is a sense of accomplishment and stuff like that. And we had this conversation, and I was like, you need help.
Yeah. And
there are clients and customers of yours that will do whatever you need. And that was a hard conversation for him.
Sure.
And so I would say, like, to your question, it's having the vulnerability to ask for something. And that's a life lesson, regardless if you're a single owner operated business or not. Asking for help when you need it, or recognizing that you need help and then asking for it, are two of the hardest lessons that I think is probably for the majority of us that were maybe born in the late 70s, early 80s.
Gen X means just no help, never asking for it ever.
Can't show vulnerability. I got this.
I was left outside for 18 hours a day, never checked on. Right. So point being, oh God, don't get me started on that. Make me feel old. I think there's a huge part of that. I know it resonated with me as soon as you were saying it, is like just not asking for help, not wanting to show the weakness, not wanting to fail. Right. And it took me a while to get over that. It was more, so for me, it was more learning where that behavior came from than it was the behavior itself. Once I learned, like, oh, right, when you were a kid, that thing happened, and that's the reason that you have to survive on your own. Like, you can't ask for help. You're only left, right? So once you kind of understand whatever level of abandonment, if that's your thing, that was my thing, right? Abandonment, betrayal, right? The abandonment, once you understand that that's where that comes from, it makes so much sense how you react to all these other situations, right? Why you don't ask for help in this context.
You had to be self-sufficient.
You had to be.
Therefore, you will be self-sufficient, and that's your default.
Yep.
If your default's getting in your own way, I'm my own. I have my own defaults too that are massively unproductive. In fact, a very wise mentor of mine today was like, you need to start giving your ability to have the choice. Stop blocking the option before it becomes an option for you to choose. And I'm like, I've heard this from you like 6 times. I need to probably start paying attention.
I should listen.
Oh, she's like banging on her desk, and it's like, oh yeah. So we all have our blockers.
Yeah.
And when I dug in with him of like, why is it important that you not ask for help? And it came, like the response came back very prideful of like, I want to have done this on my own. And how many of us want that? Like, that is a universal whatever. But you doing it on your own includes asking for the resources when you need the assistance.
So you doing it on your own is a historical footnote, right? No one gives a shit how you got there. So if you say you did it by yourself and you have this big pride in it, that's all it is someone can say down the road, He did it by himself. It doesn't make it any easier, whatever it is you're doing. So you have to be able to get past this pride and this notion that like I did it all myself and I had to prove myself to folks. No, if the goal that you want is X and you aren't getting there on your own, why not ask for help? There's a lot of people that are way better than you at a lot of stuff. So,
well, and they're your
ask for that help.
resources. They're your resources. Like your
Yeah.
network is your resources. Your relationships are your resources. And I consider myself to be in that network or whatever. It also doesn't change the outcome. So like, unfortunately, he's had some recent circumstances related to land development that have made this untenable. And while I love that place and it was a place for us to go and have a beer and have fun and meet other
Who wouldn't?
people, I care about him. Right. And so do a lot of other people. And so my outcome, and I hope he to this day understands this, was like, honestly, I don't even care if you close your doors for whatever reason. I want to make sure that you're okay. And there are a lot of people in his network that feel the same way. And that's what again, it comes back to, none of us are getting out of here alive, but the relationships that will survive past us, that is our legacy. That is our legacy.
There it is. Shanta.
Praise.
I'm with you. I agree, man. It's the relationships, the networks, man. And I was talking to someone the other day, and I talked about the story about where we were at the networking meeting, but I was attending a class this week, given by one of my mentors, Kat Ford Coates, who was talking about marketing mastery, right? And it was a 2-day course, and it's kind of a lead up to a longer course that she has. And I realized as she's going through, she's defining archetypes and she's talking about how to address each one. And like it was unbelievable material, but it was marketing just thought in a different way. That's all, just a different perspective on it. So as I'm going through it, it wasn't so much the marketing knowledge that hit me. It was all the things that I wasn't doing and blaming other people for my not doing, right? It was someone else's fault. It was, I had to do this shitty job that I didn't want to do. It's their fault that I didn't have the time to network the way that I wanted, or whatever excuse or rationale my brain could come up with. I realized that I wasn't networking because I wasn't networking. And then I said, all right, why am I not networking? Like, kind of once I realized that, I was like, why am I not networking? Oh, right. Well, let's roll off the top 10: body image, shame, lack of success, like all these things, like imposter syndrome, all those things. I was like, shit, I thought you conquered those a while back. Nope. Let's cycle back through the Rolodex and, where do we start from the beginning? And that's what it's been like. Oh, that was this past month. You know what I mean? So going through this networking meeting was just kind of culminating the past couple of days in this thought of like, oh, it's me not doing the work.
We are very successful at getting in our own ways. Very successful.
World champion.
Right? Lack of self-awareness, ability to ask for help, resistance to change, resilience, like just like add that list to your point around, like perception of body, perception of self, perception of, professionalism, what you bring to the table. For many years, I was always like, well, my lack of degree, and I would have folks like you at Cisco be like, your lack of a business degree doesn't make a damn bit of difference of how you show up and what the work that you do. And I was like, but it does to me. Yeah. And I went off and I got my degree. Nobody else knew, but I knew. Like, so like you have to, sometimes you have to work through your own crap. And sometimes it requires getting a business degree to get through your crap. But like, yeah, we're really good at getting in our own way. And, but I will say, I mean, you can check your networking list off the, or check that task off the list and let you started. This is a great format for you to figure out like how to leverage this in this platform to be able to do something like that.
Right.
And you're thinking about it in a unique and relative way to our current environment. We do live in the world of digital media, and you've reached out on video on Facebook on a Friday afternoon. It's awesome.
It's really funny because like I call myself a boomer all the time, right? Just because I know like I have the hard naked look in the mirror every morning, right? And I'm just like, nope, not 18 again. There goes another day. You're still not 18. Like, fuck, things are not where they used to be in the mirror, right? So you kind of wake up every morning, you're like, all right, how do I connect with people? How do I get out there? What I do have is experience behind a microphone and in front of a camera doing this working from home for 25
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
right? It's how most of my relationships are. And it's a really interesting thing because when I think about it, I have more friends with deep connected relationships with people that are nowhere within hundreds of miles of me.
Yep.
And I struggle to make interpersonal relationships with actual humans here. Now, that could be a lot of things. Could be my ADHD, could be a whole bunch of stuff. But the point is, I'm much more comfortable connecting in this way to large groups of people than I am in going to a networking event and trying to connect with them. I have no problem talking, clearly. However, like it's just a different feeling. It's not as comfortable. I feel forced.
So let's talk about that, because that could be
Yeah.
less about you and more about the
Yeah,
event
it's them.
itself.
It's their fault. It's their
Well,
fault.
no, hold, bear with me. There is something about the art of gathering. You and I are talking, even though it may be ad hoc and it may be kind of out of the blue for both. We're talking with a purpose.
Sure.
I resonated with your topic at the beginning of your kind of signing on, and I was like, I want to have that
Yeah.
conversation. So we're gathering with a purpose. And that when you were talking about this networking event, I was like, that's bringing a bunch of people together in a room and giving them cocktails and snacks, but that's not really a purpose.
You're
There's no
lubricating
purpose
in
there.
hopes of.
Yeah, well, the how, like, and so I've thought about this quite a bit because I love to entertain. I have pre-COVID days would have groups come over to my home on a regular basis, and sometimes teams, sometimes friends, sometimes whatever, and I
I like that
loved
too.
it. But since COVID, that's atrophied a lot, and I'm struggling to like even really feel confident entertaining and bringing the right group of people together for what purpose? Because I think people kind of need it needs to either be structured in a way that's going to be purposeful, or they need to be pulled in because of a particular purpose. And just something like networking, okay, I'm going to shake your hand. What does that do? How are we connecting as human beings? Like the purpose is there at the connection, not at the shaking of the hand and handing over a business card. Hell, who even has business cards anymore? Do you?
I do. However, don't again, not boomer. But I live in Boomertown, USA, right?
Okay.
However, no, I switched to QR codes. Switched to QR
Okay.
codes
Okay.
on the phone,
Someone can scan it.
so someone can scan it. And I used it really for the first time out at a portrait conference back in March, and I learned two things very quickly. One, way easier than business cards.
Mm-hmm.
Great, because I set up my whole thing and they've got everything, like every place that I'm appearing is right there. What I hated was that the app is just kind of like, oh, before you see this guy's stuff, why don't you sign up for an
Sign up.
account and go through these pop-ups and do all this? And I was just like, you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Because that level of interstitial, I think is what they call it, like the pop-ups, like that level of thing is so invasive to the user experience.
It pulls them away. Yeah. Yeah.
Pulls them away. Put it at the end. Make it your end credits. Did you enjoy this? Great. Don't do it at the beginning. You're shooting your shot way too soon.
Yes.
And but I did find, not to get off on the topic of business cards, like that is one of the most efficient, cool things to be able to do. Not only do you do that, but you start to engage with the person in front of you in a different way. where you're now less like you have the phone that is now your buffer between any awkwardness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And you're using something that first of all, when we pick up these things, although you're recording me we're on the video on my phone, so I can't pick it up. So when you pick up your phone, there's, because of the nature of things like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and all that, we get a dopamine feed, right? The moment it's sitting in that hand. So yeah, I mean, it's a buffer plus a little bit of good
Yeah.
vibes happening through your
Pavlov's
body.
dog, man. Like, we're stoked. We're stoked every time that ding happens. And now, like with my watch, Apple Watch is like,
Yeah.
now we're getting the physical stimulus. Like, yeah, it vibrates. Like, yeah. Right. It's
Yep. It tells me
amazing.
when to stand. It tells me where to go, and it tells me who's interested in talking with me. That's great. It's fantastic.
So I enabled the move feature on this. So it's just kind of like, it's a Garmin. And so it's just kind of like whatever interval it's like, move. 6 hours into it, my watch sent me, I give up. I give up. Because like
Not trying anymore.
It would go move, and I'd do this.
Oh no, I do this. I like like it'll think I'm standing. Sure.
I don't think I'm right. Oh yeah, I haven't moved from. I don't even know if I could stand at this point. Everything from my waist down is absolutely, there's zero circulation going on. So whatever my watch tells me to do is not being listened to.
It does have to be a feedback loop you're willing to like participate in.
Right.
But no, that's good that you have a QR code from a business card perspective. I have heard that that's like the newer thing.
Yeah, and, you know what? So you can take the guy out of the tech, but you can't take the nerd out of the guy, right? So in doing all the things, right, and never asking for help, again, we're back to the whole ADHD shame thing, right? Gen Xer, fucking, we're gonna survive. I still do everything myself, right? Website, social media, run the business, all the things. Everything is me. So also with me is Adderall and insane focus. So let's get on the topic, right? So you know what? You know what would be great? Instead of having just the one link in Instagram, let me look at how I get more links. All right, I look at Linktree. Well, I don't want to pay $15 or whatever it is a month to have the Linktree, so I'm going to build it myself. Let me start coding. And now I do that. Now I'm working on web pages. Here we are 6-8 hours later, and I'm still trying to get this fucking shit to work. Because what am I not? A web developer. So I'm in it, and I've got 49 inches of monitor, and I've got Google over here, and I've got, code over here, and I've got the website in the middle, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm like Neo in the Matrix. And at the end of the day, I wind up like going to Canva and getting a template. Right? Because I'm like, I just can't fucking be bothered. Now, that being said, because of that level of nerdydom, and I want to do it myself, I know exactly how everything works in every system. God help the first person that I hire, because there's no way to get all this shit onto their brain. And it's going to take me out of business for at least 6 to 8 months to try to train them because of my level of neuroses.
Or you're just going to have to let go. That's another boomer-ish lesson. Gen Xer, whatever. Here's what I think. I think Gen Xers think that they're already in the
boomer class,
zombie apocalypse, right? Like I think that we were. I'm more on the millennial cusp of this, but like there is this scrappy, do it ourselves, completely survival is 100% our own responsibility. Not asking for help, whatever. And again, just getting in our own goddamn way, because we have the expertise, we have the knowledge, and we have like maybe the inability to delegate. So
do you understand now why I live in a cabin in the woods in an elevated position? I've got a firearm safe? Like, do you understand this now?
Yes,
Like,
I do. Oh, I remember us having conversations about you moving off into the woods. I mean, the curmudgeon thing's already been well
oh,
established,
that's been
right? Like,
steeping for 25 years. Like, that's nothing. That's nothing to do with age. I was born just an old person, just just cynical and just tired of the world. Like, get me out of this. You're 4. You got a long way to go. And it's
yes,
kind of like,
yes,
really? Okay, all
yes.
right, I guess.
And you still do, and you
I
still
still
do.
do.
So,
I
maybe
don't know, drinking the champagne of beers ain't exactly putting miles on the road.
uh,
So
I
what do
don't
you got
know. It
going
might
on
be
this weekend?
preserving you from the inside. You don't know.
What's
You don't
that?
know. It might be preserving you from the inside. You don't
This
know.
is a very good possibility. Believe me, the things that I've done, if I ain't dead yet, I'm coming at you, Keith Richards. I'm coming at you. Um, what do you got going on this weekend? I'm sure
I
there's probably going to be some work, given your work, sprinkled in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, I'm taking possession of the house this evening. Contractors will be showing up on Monday, so I'm going to start packing this weekend. It is Mother's Day on
Congratulations.
Sunday. Thank you. It's been a long time coming, and it's going to be a good situation for us.
That's awesome.
This dog's going to get a yard again. She's going to be thrilled. There's going to be things for her to bark at through fences as opposed to windows.
All new stuff.
Yeah. And then it's Mother's Day on Sunday, so my 19-year-old is giving me the gift of leaving me alone, is what he said.
You raised them well. You
I
raised them
really
well.
He was going to take the dog and go fishing, and I'm going to have silence to do whatever I want with. And I appreciate that gift. I really do. I
In
think
those
you're maybe
times of silence, I love screaming. I just love screaming.
make your own noise. You know what? I was actually thinking the other day, this is just random and totally out of context, but like I need to take like a self-defense class just so that I can get that scream out in a way that's not, a woman randomly screaming in her apartment on a Thursday.
Join your local Facebook group. I told you, like Fight Club, man. Like, get in there, and even if you can't physically do it, like, oh, the rage is there. You get the rush. You get the dopamine.
I used to take like kickboxing like exercise class or whatever, and I missed that kind of like punching, kicking, yelling at things, and so I need to find some similar outlet for.
Find a local Krav Maga
Yeah, there we
dojo.
go. Yeah,
And because that's nothing but eyes and balls, and that's all you do is go after eyes and balls, and you just yell in Israeli, and it's fantastic. It's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
I want to feel comfortable that if I were ever in a situation where I needed those skills, that I could scream in Israeli like that. Yes, I need to find that, because even me doing that alone would probably scare the hell out of anybody coming at me in a cosmet. My 19-year-old is about 6'4".
Yeah, he's a big guy.
And a water polo player, and inadvertently, because he's very ADHD, will injure me regularly because he's just like,
Sure, big dude.
around.
Yeah.
So I need even some like self-defense of just being able to like block my body and move my body in the right way. When he's just
Hands up at all times. Just anytime you approach him.
He's reminded me recently that I have zero self-preservation instinct. Because
You're done. We talked zombie apocalypse. You're done. Your Operation Human Shield is all you are.
So I was like, hey, I have made it 45 years on this earth. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of a wonder that you have.
Jesus.
So obviously I have raised a smartass like myself, and but he's not wrong, because like as I was explaining, as I was explaining a fairly unsafe situation I had found myself in recently, of just being kind of stupid and dumb and naive. And then I was explaining this as I was about to leave to go downtown for a late night with the ladies in Seattle. And he's like, you're not helping my anxiety in any way. So I probably, I think I do need to give him the comfort of mom's going to take a self-defense class or something in my future.
The good
No,
thing
my
is
weekend
like,
will be probably all boxes and organizations.
yeah,
I do have to let you go though, because I have a virtual happy hour that I also need to just log into. So
yeah,
I would gladly do this again at any point in time that you want to do it. But I also would recommend, I have a group of girlfriends. They put it out on Facebook. We are all over the country, and we do a happy hour still once a month. It is like our lifeline. It's continuing that COVID time.
yeah.
Go find that for yourself. I'm happy to do something like this, and any others that want to join again, because this has been a fun way to spend a Friday afternoon. It really
It's been
has.
fantastic. It's so great to see you again. God, I missed your face. I missed these conversations. So go do your move. Don't get too many paper cuts from the cardboard boxes. Enjoy your silent screaming. And yeah, I'm going to connect with you soon. Okay.
Okay. All
All
right. You
right.
take care.
Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.
And I'm going to bring up this little comment that came in. Are you wearing trousers? You know what? It's a good thought. It's a good question. I'm going to leave that up to everybody's imagination. So, anyway, you just heard, what was that? Almost 2 hours with Charlene. Now, Charlene, again, was one of my colleagues from Cisco Systems. We did a lot of mergers and acquisitions together. We were both in HR at the same time, worked a lot of deals. And she's gone on and worked at Amazon and Silicon Valley Bank. And like, she's been in a lot of places. Like, she's got a very big resume. So we were just talking a lot about mental health, dealing with significant change, job loss, all that sort of stuff. So that just kind of gets you caught up. If you ever want to watch the replay, that's what we talked about for 2 hours. So how are you all doing? Get at me in the chat. I don't even know who's here. I see we got 6 people. People have been dropping in and out. I ran out of rye about an hour ago. I've got a little bit left in my Miller High Life, and then we're going on to actual hydration. But maybe I can find some gummies around here or something to kind of keep the roll going. But get in the chat, talk to me. What do you guys want to talk about? You can ask me anything. I really don't have any level of agenda of anything that I want to talk about. This is just purely an end of the week. We've all had this really long, strange week. So hang out. Tell me what's going on. What's in your world? What's in your world? Now, in my world, for a long time, I worked 7 days a week, 27 hours a day, and I've given myself weekends off over the past couple of months, and I'm still not used to having weekends off. So tomorrow, going to be really warm, going to do a bunch of yard work. It's going to feel really strange. I'll probably be done by about 10:30 in the morning and just not know what's going on. But let me know what's going on with you guys this weekend. Maybe we can relate. If you want to join me here, we can just kind of chat like I was doing with Charlene. Just DM me. I will send you the invite link. Join me on camera, join me on mic, and we can just talk about anything. I don't care how long. It doesn't have to be anything long or professional. Just come talk to me. I like hanging out like this. So in the meantime, what I've been doing over the past couple of days, creating a ton of content. Next Thursday, the 18th, I'm going to be giving a live webinar. It will also be recorded, but a webinar on podcasting, about creating your first audio show, about unlocking your voice, and how you can do kind of all of this. I go through literally everything. It is the most comprehensive course that I've seen, and certainly one of the biggest courses that I've ever put together. It's about defining it. It's marketing and business. It's recording. It's equipment. It's editing, both video and audio. It's about distribution, all the side notes, all the stuff that I use, example setups, everything, monetization, right? Anything you can think of related to podcasting, I will be covering. Now, there's so much in that world that it's impossible to cover, but I've got at least 100 slides so far of unbelievable information and things for you to think about as you get into podcasting. A lot of people talk to me and they're just kind of like, you sound really good, or it's fun, I want to do it. My mom once told me that I had a funny joke this one time and I should do a podcast. You know, it's a great way for anybody to get into a different type of communication with your audience, especially if you own a business or if you do anything like this. So I'm doing this course next Thursday. I'm not doing a hard sell. I'm just super stoked about it. I haven't put any to get together any content like this in a really, really long time. So I'm super stoked about it. But you'll see more stuff from that if you follow the Artist Forge, or if you look up the Artist Forge, or shit, send me a text. I don't care. And I'll give you all the information on that. But that's going to be next Thursday at probably nighttime, East Coast time, 7 or 8 o'clock ish East Coast time. So wherever you are, that'll be happening. But I'll be posting all kinds of stuff about it next week. So maybe that'll do it for me. If no one's going to join me up here, doing a couple hours was a lot of fun. This was a great hang. Let me know if you want to see this more often. God knows I'm here all the time. So send me a note if you want me to just kind of do a hangout. You got any questions, let me know. I guess I'll end it there, right at the 2-hour mark. All right, guys. That's it. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.